This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. I'd like to extend a really warm welcome to Anna. She is the creative force behind Sound of Lisbon. Anna, so what's going on in Lisbon?
Hi, Justin. Nice to meet you. There's lots of stuff happening in Lisbon. It's sometimes a bit hard to navigate this diverse landscape of live music. But with Sound of Lisbon, I'm trying to package it a bit better, make it a bit more accessible. So in March, I've been looking for the highlights. So I think one of them is actually starting today. It's a concert series called Inquietação by Mundo. And it goes from 6th of March until the 27th of May. And it's hosted at B.Leza. It's a big venue that focuses on African music. And this series is kind of dedicated to artists that challenge cultural and sonic boundaries. They blend genres, they defy the norms, and they provoke cultural reflections. And it's a bit of an unpredictable music journey. And I think it's good for people who are open-minded and want to see something new, and especially with like different cultural backgrounds. The artists usually come from, for instance, Cape Verde, and mix it with Portuguese influences. And the next one that I would recommend is the 11th of March, Lenda and Oko Ebombo. The first artist, it's always two, it has this Cape Verdean roots, and Oko Ebombo is based in Paris. And it's like, I think, a good way to discover something new.
The reason why I really wanted you to speak to you on this podcast, and from my own personal experience, of course, I love music. I like to open my mind to music, new music, and live music, not necessarily just Spotify and Apple Music recommendations. And I feel you get a really good feeling of a culture and a feeling of a city if you listen to the music which is happening in that area. And it's actually surprisingly difficult, for me anyway, to find something, an easy go-to communication portal that's going to tell me what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and a little bit of a menu of what's going on in the music scene. And that's how I found Sound of Lisbon. So what sort of made you? Oh, and actually, on a side note, I just want to make sure and to inform listeners that all of the menu of music that we can have, that we're going to talk about on this podcast, will be available in the show notes, and I'll also post it on the website under the episode. And I'm sure Anna will explain also where you can follow her and to follow any information that she can give out. So yeah, what made you think of Sound of Lisbon, and why?
Yeah, this is exactly the thing. I arrived in Lisbon and from Berlin, and I was always passionate about live music. I was going out to concerts there a lot, also working a bit in music at the time. And then here, I didn't really find the places in the beginning. Like, where do you get to see these emerging artists, these up and coming talents? Apart from fado and jazz, which of course I think is very present when you arrive. You see, okay, in all the restaurants in Alfama, it's going to be fado. And then there's Hot Club in Lisbon that's very famous, of course, for institution for jazz. But I wanted more. And then I started discovering bit by bit. I found this little magazine that has a monthly list of everything happening in Lisbon. I think it's called Agenda Cultural Lisboa or something. And it's a thing where I just went through it and I wrote all of these things out on paper that I wanted to go to. And I started also sharing with friends because they asked me how I always find these concerts. And I shared it on my private account on Instagram. And then I realized maybe it makes sense to have a separate space for that, and just started Sound of Lisbon. And this was 2 years ago, and now the community has grown to over 8,000 followers, and I'm happy about it, and I want to grow it further and make a community around this music scene, and also not just make it more accessible and communicate what's going on, but also showcase venues and emerging artists, and also start to organize events as well. I already curated live music for a beach club in Caparica the last 2 seasons, under the name of Sound of Lisbon. But it's always a focus on live music. I also share other music events, but it's mostly live stuff. Yeah, and I hope it's gonna develop further. I'm still doing this alone, but I'm looking for collaborators or someone to support. 'Cause it's a lot of work, and I would like to do the next step and actually, connect people, also organize events and stuff.
It's a really cool idea, and I'm sort of picturing here that if I followed one of your recommendations, I go to a live event, I experience the live event, I come back, and it's such a nice thing to drop you a comment on your Instagram and to then sort of give a little bit of a review of the event for potential following listeners, you know? Yeah, I mean, I don't know, we live in such a review culture, and you say, I don't know whether I'm gonna go," and then if somebody says, yeah, that was such a fantastic event, this artist was doing this and that," and then, okay, then, it might persuade people to just take that little bit of a risk and go there, I think, it's a really nice idea.
I mean, there are already some event guides out there, but a lot of it is in Portuguese. And so I think it's also, makes it a little bit more accessible for people who just arrived that are internationals, but also the locals, of course. But to have it in English and to have and to boil it down a little bit, and maybe make it visually sometimes a bit more appealing. Um, Sometimes it's just a bit hard. Like the promotion side is sometimes not so much the focus, I think, for some live music events, and I think then it's good to just package it also differently, like for venues, for instance, that have other things to take care of.
It's quite surprising. I experienced that as well with Podcast Portugal. You'd be surprised how many Portuguese nationals, in first language, obviously Portuguese, are listening to a podcast about Portugal in English. You'd be
Really?
surprised,
Yeah.
um, and thankful, of course.
Yeah, it's probably a new perspective for them also to listen to a foreigner talk about,
Yeah, that's true. I haven't
or
thought about it that way.
interview people, local people. I mean, you have a lot of local. It's focused on the local community anyway, so they are interested in that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it really, like, music really does kind of reflect a personality and reflect an identity and energy of Lisbon. In your own personal feeling, how do you think the music of the sound of Lisbon? How does it reflect Lisbon's identity and energy?
Oh wow, that's a good question. I think.
Sorry, I dropped that one on you.
No, but I think Lisbon, it is so diverse. I was very surprised. I mean, first I thought, okay, there's fado, okay, there's jazz, but there's so much more, and with the historical background with the colonies, and the of course there's so much world music here, from Angola and from Cape Verde and from also Mozambique, and all of these influences make it very interesting, and of course Brazilian music
Mm,
as well. Like I've never been to a samba before. I moved to Lisbon, so here you could have this almost every day. You go on a Sunday and see Viva o Samba, Lisboa. Those are, I think, the most famous here. They are every Sunday, either at Mirari or Village Underground. That's also a recommendation, actually.
mhm.
And I think the sound of Lisbon, it's a very diverse sound. There's also a big electronic music scene. I think the party scene is already super developed, and people already know and look for that. So for me, it's very important to highlight the live
Mm.
music scene, and also show, okay, there are also these little bars that have live music almost every day, and that have a very intimate atmosphere, and it's nice to go, and it's not a big investment. You can just go for free sometimes,
Yeah.
just have a drink.
Wow.
There's also something I want to recommend is these house concerts by Lisbon Livingroom sessions. That's in different, really usually quite fancy places, houses where they do these concerts. They have concerts in bookshops, which I think are quite intimate and cute, like acoustic setups with newcomer artists, like the Good Bookstore. They have a new one now, and then Honey sessions. Those I already introduced on the Sound of Lisbon profile, but there's many things like this, or Sofar sounds. This exists in all the cities in Europe, but they have one here as well, where you don't know the artist before, you don't know the place before, and it's secret, but they tell you on the day. And you just have the guarantee that it's always going to be high quality. It's always going to be like you discover a new artist, and it's going to be an intimate thing. It's 3 artists, I think, normally for each show. But these things is, I think, I packaged them together as one recommendation for people who like these intimate atmosphere concerts.
Sort of promote more the venue, or do you promote the artists themselves?
Ooh, that depends. If it's a concert of one artist, like a show in a bigger concert venue, or in a smaller one, but it's more like a solo, like a standalone thing, like just this one artist is playing, then I would focus on the artist. But if it's a format like a concert series, I focus on that. And if it's a venue that has regular live music, then I highlight more the venue, I think. The venue makes a big difference, of course, as well. Like, for instance, there are concerts as well at the Lux, the club. It's probably quite famous. And they do Thursdays and Fridays. They have sometimes bigger concerts there in the club on the lower floor. And it's a great atmosphere. You know, they have these huge disco balls. They have amazing sound. And then afterwards, you go up and you can have a drink or a little dance on the dance floor upstairs, or stand on the terrace and look at the river. So I think it has a big effect on the atmosphere as well. But yeah, now I already gave you 3 different recommendations. I have more.
So what would be your top 5 venues and events to go to in March?
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
If you were to choose 5 of your favorites.
So venues, I think, B.Leza. Then for the African and kind of world music sounds. Then if you like the more comfortable, immersive, relax mode, full attention concerts, you can sit down. I would say CCB in Belém, or Kulturgest. I hope I'm saying this right. They have more experimental things, or Gulbenkian, of course, for classical music. That's like a classic. These are the bigger ones. And then I think if you want like a nice open mic night or smaller up and comings, I would go to Camões for sure in Graça. They had on Tuesdays always an open mic night that was super nice. They changed owners recently, and I haven't been, but I think it's still worth going. And then I was at Cultura Lounge yesterday, and I also really enjoyed this. If you also want the atmosphere of having a nice cocktail or some snack and seeing live music at the same time, it's just very nice atmosphere, very nice, a bit more fancy, for people who more elegant. But the music was great. Yeah, the music was not was a bit of a contrast actually. It was an Italian band, Type Ras, they're also going to play at Bateu tonight, which is a totally different venue. And I was also thinking when I saw them there, how will this change? I think it will be a completely different atmosphere when they play at Oba Bateu, because it's more like a, how can I say, like more down to earth kind of simple but really cool vibe bar that where people are standing and having beers. Whereas in the other place, in Cultura Lounge, it's more, you have your cocktail, you can even have shishas there, and you sit at the table. So that for that band, I think it's also a very different experience to play in these two places. And they play, it was kind of very energetic, like indie funk. It's always hard to explain. I'm not the best when it comes to explaining the genres, but it was definitely danceable. But
It's very difficult to try to describe music in words.
yeah, I think people just have to listen to it. So that's why I just try to provide a recommendation and then give them all the necessary links. And in the end, you have to kind of maybe give it a listen or just trust that it's good and be surprised.
I'd be surprised. And I mean, some of the bands and some of the venues that I've seen you recommend are quite interesting. A lot of them I haven't actually heard of, so it's really nice to get it a little bit in tune with the kind of grassroots, the sort of up and coming projects that are happening, the up and coming bands, and get a little bit of and also give support, to these artists. I think that's also really important to put the spotlight on them a little bit. Music is very different than listening to up and coming music on YouTube. It's a different experience, and I think that experience should be promoted like what you're doing. I think the world would be a sad place if we only listen to music on in our living rooms or in the shower or
I agree.
or whatever, or via YouTube.
There's a lot of bands also that maybe I wouldn't listen to it on Spotify, but to experience them live, is great. And there's bands you might listen to on Spotify that you actually don't like have the same, or you don't really need to see them live sometimes, where you might be a bit disappointed because it's very, it's so well produced and already like, you go to the big festival and you don't really feel anything when you see them. I had this phenomenon. But then there's this smaller, like this live band that maybe you didn't know before and you don't have it in your weekly recommendation playlist, but you see them live and they have this, they are able to create an atmosphere or transport this vibe and really, make people feel something. I think that's the core thing.
It's multidimensional, and I guess when we're listening to performances on Spotify or podcasts on Apple or whatever, we're literally just listening to the audio, and there is something in the physical presence and the dancing, and for a good example would probably be someone like Mick Jagger. The performance that obviously Mick Jagger is not performing in the small bars of Lisbon, but it's that kind of, it's that kind of, to see him live is completely different in terms of performance compared to if you just listen to on Spotify. It's a different vibe. There is more to it. There is more to it than just the sound for many bands.
Yeah, it captures all the senses, and it's very much different if the artist then engages or interacts with the audience. That makes all the difference. When I was programming live music, that was always a factor. Like, how does the artist engage also with the crowd and communicate with the crowd? And that can make a concert very, very amazing. Even if when you listen to only the sound, maybe you didn't really I don't know, feel it yet, but then you see them on stage and all of a sudden, like, they go into the crowd, they ask people to dance with them, or the trumpeter goes through the whole crowd and is kind of, yeah, involving them, that always is something you can just experience if you go there.
How, like you said, you were from Berlin, is that correct?
Yeah, I lived in Berlin for 10 years, and then I moved here 3 years ago.
And so how does it compare to, say, for example, Lisbon music scene and live scene compared to the Berlin scene?
Yeah. I mean, of course, Berlin is way bigger and more known for its music scene, and that's why people move there also. I don't think people really move to Lisbon for the music scene. Um, but it's a lot more diverse, I think, like culturally. Sometimes, like, of course, Berlin is also very diverse, but and you can find the things, but I think in Lisbon it's just more compact, and you get the diversity and in a smaller place, and you that way also it's easier to experience it because yeah, it's just easier to find it, I guess, now that also Sound of Lisbon is there. But in Berlin, you might have the samba as well, for instance, but you need to really then look for those communities to find it. And here it's, especially now during carnival season, it's just everywhere. You can't actually escape it. So I would say, yeah, Lisbon is very diverse. There's lots to offer, but of course, it's a much smaller music scene than Berlin. And also, of course, Berlin has this massive electronic music scene that it's known for. Although I always say to people that are like, yeah, Berlin, have you been to Berghain? I always say, well, Berlin is not only techno, there's more. But yeah, but it's definitely it has this brand of electronic music, and Portugal or Lisbon, I would say, for me was the first time I started to explore all these um, different types of African music, Brazilian music. Like, yeah, that was not a part of my music uh, portfolio or I don't know horizon yet.
So if I was a musician, and I wanted to, is that something that you've got with Marvelia Marketing? Is that something that you have in mind? Is that sort of the plan for the brand, is to, if a musician wants to make it in music or wants to have some advice on what venues to play in, or if there's an event you're holding, is it something that they can contact you about?
Yes and no. I think yes for recommendations, for venues to play, or if I would organize an event, a music event in the future, I might be looking for certain artists, or if I would curate for a venue, then I would also look for artists, of course. But I'm not a booker in the sense that I would be booking the artist for different shows in different places. So this would be because I've been approached for that before, and it's more the other way around. Like I would come from the event organizer or the venue side, and then program or curate, and then book them potentially.
The music scene, and it's trying to connect. It's trying to connect. Like there's quite a lot of tourism in Lisbon, and it's how to reach those visitors, and how to sort of say, okay, look, there's this going on here, there's this going on here, and how do you think you solve that conundrum of getting all the venues and all of your artists and everything, and how do you present that to the tourism industry,
Mm,
the tourists that are visiting Lisbon?
yeah, I mean, for them, it's a good opportunity to quickly see, okay, what's going on, where can I go, especially spontaneously. And when I look at the daily stories of events that I share, So, like, if they don't know what to do tonight, or if they're looking for just a bar where they can go, where there's also live music, I think then it will really help them to check out Sound of Lisbon. Um, so
And when we say Sound of Lisbon, just for the listeners' sake, it's all on the Instagram.
yeah, it's all on the Instagram, exactly. They could check the stories or the weekly recommendations. I also plan on doing more clustering it more in like a category of, all the like the jazz bars of Lisbon, the little intimate atmosphere concerts, and making different posts around that, I guess, to just find out, if I'm looking for this is where I can go. I think I will do more of this as well. But yeah, I think for tourists it's great. Also, yeah, to see, okay, where can I go spontaneously, but then also, yeah, find especially these bars, where I can, where I don't have to buy a ticket a month in advance, but I can just go and enjoy live music. I mean, I had a friend who was coming to visit with his father, I think, for 2 weeks in Portugal and Lisbon, and he wanted to know, okay, where can I listen to jazz, because he's a jazz musician himself, and then I could give him like 5 recommendations where to go, and so it's good. I think it's just happening organically already. People asking, okay, I have my boss is coming from the States. He's looking for a bar with live music. Where can I go in Lisbon?
And so people like PM you on Sound of Lisbon.
Yeah. And of course, it would be good if out of the community, I think this is also the next step, people would give their own recommendations, like, so that the community is kind of helping each other as well.
I really love the idea. I think it's so cool, Sound of Lisbon, and it's so needed. And part of this podcast is to sort of understand a little bit about what you can do in Portugal, and as an entrepreneur, what are the kind of things, what is needed, and how are different people approaching creating business and creating information sources like you are. Um, and I I find it fascinating because you're always, as a foreigner coming into a new country, and sometimes if I was looking for a salaried wage here, I would be a little bit disappointed in many respects, like many people are here. And so I think, and and I believe the future is ripe for entrepreneurialism. I think, like, for people to either work as freelancers or work as like what you're doing, what I'm doing, and to actually generate income from multiple different sources, and not having to rely on a salaried wage. Of course, there is benefits to a salaried wage, and I'm not denying, but I'm fascinated by it, and how different people approach it in a different way. They see a need, they have an interest and a passion. They see a need, and it's like, okay, what can I do to firstly, and it always seems to be the best entrepreneurial ideas seem to be like, I'm passionate about this, and then they go for it, and then it's like, okay, now probably I need to monetize it. That you always
Yeah,
because I
that's always tricky. The tricky part.
and that leads me to my question. And in your vision and full disclosure, how do you think that you're going to monetize something like this? Well, you don't have to answer that
Yeah, I
question,
think
by
this is
the way, if it's like part of your private.
no, but of course it's a transparent thing. Obviously, that it's a lot of work, and of course, in the long term, I would like to monetize it. I'm punctually, like, at sometimes already monetizing a little bit, but I think I'm like at this point now with Sound of Lisbon, with the amount of followers and engagement, that I can start with this. But it's always difficult, of course, to ask money from, yeah, from people in the music scene.
Yeah, so I mean, you Sound of Lisbon, I think it's a really nice idea. You're getting a lot of engagement. You're creating a community around the live music, and I perhaps with the that it's going to drive a lot of stuff to your events. Is that something that you're going to um, perhaps develop a little bit more the event side of things?
Organizing events myself, you mean? Or
Yeah, organizing like you were doing in Costa Caparica, the live music events. I'm trying to think for you, like, in terms of monetization, like, because you're creating such a great service, and always with artists, it's very difficult to ask them to pay you something, but it's really nice to be able to help them. Uh, and obviously, like, the venues are also trying to be, helping up and coming arts, but they do benefit in many respects. They benefit from alcohol sales and
mm, from the monetization perspective, of course, I think to be sustainable and to continue doing this in the long term, it needs to be in some form, yeah, monetized. And I'm just at this point now where it's starting to um, be, yeah, where there's also paid collaborations for content, when it's depends on the format of the content. If it's like a lot of work, if it's like a whole reel that has to be produced, or a permanent post instead of just sharing a story, for instance. And that's the content side. And then, of course, it also depends who's asking. If an artist asks to promote the show, it's of course not necessarily something where I ask money. Um, but if it's like a booking agency or some bigger players, or somewhere, there's definitely also revenue on their end.
it'd be super nice if there would be a booking agent or an online booking service out there that'll get in touch with you. That's what I'd love to see.
Yeah, would be great, especially like maybe international ones where there's a tour happening in Portugal and they need the promotion in Lisbon, or yeah. That, and then events. Yeah, events, of course, I would like to organize music events or curate for a venue. But there's no concrete plan yet, but that would be nice, yeah, if that happens in the future. It's a lot of work also, but I still have a part-time job, and I have to say, to pay the rent. So, yeah.
My part-time job is surf coaching. I
Surf?
do a lot of yeah, I do a lot of
Ah,
video surfing. So I have another. In fact, I started this business like 10 years ago. Uh, Basically, I do video surf coaching for intermediates to advanced and to athletes. Like this weekend, for example, I have my little athlete Zoe. She's competing in a shout out to Zoe, competing in the Costa Caparica in one of the grommet competitions there that they hold, which is always a fantastic venue.
mhm.
Um, the little kids, they just love it. She's really good. She's actually from Switzerland. She's in the Swiss Olympic team. So yeah, so I mean, we do our things, and her father actually, a shout out to Lucas as well, is also a surfer, and his band, he has a band in Switzerland, and
Uh-huh.
his band is really cool. And he does the jingle for my for the podcast. So a little bit of a roundabout links there, but yeah, I mean, I love it because with surf coaching now, I'm able to focus on the clients that I really want to coach. I don't have to be like a surf school and just be like a factory,
Mhm.
having to coach a whole bunch of people that are never going to surf again, and they just tick it off their bucket list. I really focus on the surfer that suddenly gets really inspired, and they've been surfing and they've gone to a surf school and they want to go a little bit further, but they're not sure how to approach the green waves, and then I take it all the way from that level to professional athletes. Actually, I coached one of your uh, German international surfers who was in the Olympic team, Marlon
Really?
Becker. I don't know his name. Yeah,
Wow.
he actually has a place in Lisbon. He's got a place in the Algarve as well, in Lagos. He grew up surfing here in Portugal, and he reached in 2006 or 2007, I think it was. He was in the World Championship Tour, blew everybody away. Everyone was like, "Hey, how's a German surfer got into? Does Germany even have waves?" Or they were completely confused how this young blonde-haired German kid, they called him the Hulk, was absolutely ripping it up and taking the championship tour by storm. I loved it. He did really well.
Oh, cool.
Super super high work ethic and
Yeah, the Germans. That's what we're known
uh,
for.
he approaches it like that. No nonsense. Really hard work ethic and just a lot of power, a lot of precision. A bit like BMW, who he's actually got a really cool deal with. He's sponsored by BMW, and they make the new this hydrogen. Is it hydrogen car? It's not electric,
Mhm.
but he's sponsored by BMW Hydrogen, and they give him this really cool car to drive all over Europe in and surf. I mean, it's such a great. He's doing really well for himself. I'm really proud of him. So
Well, that's also leads me to another idea is, of course, brands, yeah, to collaborate with. And that's maybe one stream of income where there's more money, where maybe it makes sense to partner with a brand that is like I know I think you interviewed them as well. People in Lisbon or people of Lisbon, the Instagram. Yeah, and I think they have a partnership with Why Not Soda, for instance, like the drink. So I think these I don't know what the collaboration is, but these types of things I think would also be.
it's a very simple topic. It's not overly technical with the camera work. Stephen will be the first one to admit, like he just has a camera and he points it. That's what he says, and it works. And yeah. I think behind the scenes with the editing and stuff, but it gets that people want to hear from other people. The service and everything what they're offering is almost a little bit secondary. First, they want to. I lived. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and if you go, and I was into involved with the business world over there quite a bit, and if you go into the business world there, you spend at least 30 minutes talking about everything apart from what you actually set the meeting up to talk about. So you talk about family, you talk about football, you talk about where they've traveled, and you get to know the person, and it's almost rude to start talking straight away about the topic of investment or the business that you formulated.
Not the American way or the German way, where you cut to the chase right
Hello, how are
away.
you? And what is your business and how can you help us? Yeah, it's not like that. It's more, it's kind of a little bit like Portuguese in many ways. Like, well,
Yeah,
I think,
true.
I think I would imagine that more deals get struck over the 2 hours of lunchtime than outside of that 2 hours of.
Yeah, I think this is also something I noticed that I really want to meet now also more of the venue owners, because I realized, um, I mean, I'm really good at like my whole job is around online marketing, like my other part of job, and I'm always online and I check on Instagram and I go through all the stuff that happens and find out which ones are good and I go there. But I now want to also meet the people behind, um, and really talk face to face and just meet for coffee. And I'm noticing I think that really makes it a difference. Um,
Do you speak Portuguese as well?
I speak a bit, still not good enough, I think, to do a whole kind of conversational podcast, but like I can make myself understood. I took like a lot of lessons, but I need to dare to speak more, I think. And then I think then Sound of Lisbon is also a good way to connect more with Portuguese people. Because you're a little bit in a bubble in Lisbon, especially like in a little bit expat bubble, um, where most of my friends are not Portuguese. But I want to change that. It's been 3 years, so yeah, not proud of
My
that.
experience, I've lived here, 13 years. My partner, she is Portuguese, so
And that helps.
it does. But I've always found, well, I have a few different methods and strategies that I can probably bore my listeners with. But I've always found, like, if you extend the hand, a warm handshake will always come in return, and I think as
Yeah.
we need to not take that position of standing back a little bit. We have to sort of open up a little bit more. We have to take the first step.
Mm.
And I found that strategy works quite well because if, for example, if you go to a cafe in Lisbon or whatever, you'll notice if you're sitting in there, someone will walk in that cafe and they'll say bon dia, and everyone will say bon dia, bon dia, bon dia, bon dia. And you think, they all know each other, but then you realize they don't know each other at all. It's just a case of, like, it's that first step that you take. You walk into a cafe, you say hello to everybody, they say hello back. And that could lead into
Mhm.
another conversation, but it's like, I don't think, well, I know from my nationality, although I never really lived there, but I was born in the UK. We also have that sort of Northern European vibe of probably not taking that first step. And so in Portugal, it's kind of similar in many ways. And so we both sort of are on the back foot and there is no one extending the hand. I think language is one way of extending the hand. If you start to try to speak Portuguese to the Portuguese people, that's one way.
That's true.
And even just getting used to walking into a place and saying bom dia.
Yeah, and not just bon dia, but also bon dia, tudo bem, to the waiter, because that's also something we don't do this in Germany. We don't say hallo, wie geht's? It's usually just hi and then my order. And this is what I would like. And yeah, and here it's more this first introduction, it's politeness, but it opens up. You think it's just a little thing, but I think it opens a bit the hearts, or at least the first step to get also a bit more friendliness.
Always try to see things from other people's perspectives, and if I'm, for example, Portuguese, and I've got a degree, which is quite often the case here, but I'm sort of still just trying to pay the bills a little bit, working as a waiter or whatever. Um, I'm I'm basically in the service industry, and there's somebody who walks in, they speak to me in English, they ask for something in English, and they don't really understand, or they don't think of me as being anything else apart from somebody who's going to serve them some food. And I think anywhere you travel in the world, I don't believe that is. People are not there really just to serve you, because you have no idea their background, and you'll find often here you'll speak to somebody who's a waiter or whatever. They have fantastic stories and tales, and they're highly educated in many different ways, not just in university but in travel. They've worked all over the world in crazy hotels in Thailand or whatever. And I think as tourists, but also as I guess we could call ourselves immigrants in many ways, we need to sit down at a table and look at somebody in the eye and say, exactly, "Bom dia, tudo bem? And tell me, what do you recommend? What is your experience of this wine? Where does this food come from? Oh, really? Where did you?" I think it's just I wouldn't call it like common courtesy, but it's I think it's just a way to approach things, possibly. It's always worked for me. I live in the middle of nowhere. Um, I did live in the Algarve. I did live just north of Lisbon, and now I live on a farm in the absolute middle of nowhere. And we have elderly neighbors who are farmers. They come around. They don't speak a word of English.
Of course, and you're forced, no, to speak Portuguese. In Lisbon, you can get by without it, but you will always be seen as a tourist, kind of. And you don't want that after 3 years, you don't wanna be in the same bucket. So
I mean, and my neighbors come around. They don't even text. They don't know what WhatsApp is, or anything like that. So me me and Rita, we can be in our pajamas and having like a chilled Sunday watching a movie or something, and we have a little knock at the door. It's our neighbors come around for coffee. It's really uh, I know, and they'll come and they'll talk, and then after 5 minutes, they've gone again. I've made them coffee, and I actually keep special chocolates in the cupboard for him because we don't really eat chocolate and stuff at home. But I actually buy in the supermarket some special chocolates because I know he likes it when he comes around. But it's funny, and it's all very possible. And I think we have to always take the first step as immigrants, and sometimes it's not natural for us Northern Europeans. Of course, I'm generalizing a hell of a lot here, but for many of us, but also you can take the first step and you can be super annoying. So, but you have to take that risk. Uh, Other recommendations I have for immigrants in Portugal. I always say it's a really good idea to join a gym. A gym is a funny place because you can talk to people. You have an excuse to talk to people without appearing to be like a crazy person. Um, and also jujitsu or mixed martial arts. Like I've moved in many different places around the world, and I've always found if you go to it could be, I guess, a Zumba class, or salsa dancing, or it could be anything. It's just go to a local class, and you'll be amazed how the everybody opens up there.
That's true. Or go to the live music places because that's also where you meet the people.
I
Sure.
think we're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah. No, because sometimes you go to see an artist, like Emmy Curl, for instance. She's from, I think, the north of Portugal, and she had a gig at B.Leza, and I was there because I knew her before even I moved to Portugal, but that's a different story. But I saw her, and this crowd was full of Portuguese, just Portuguese people mostly, and they could sing the songs, and it was just it's also great then to really, I don't know, be part of something local. And of course, there's a lot of great music events as well that are done by internationals and where you meet most of the other international people as well, and some Portuguese that can afford the tickets. Um, but it's definitely also cool to go to places where, yeah, where the local people, music lovers are, and not just the ones that go to the beach clubs in Caparica. Yeah, but that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot happening in Lisbon. It's over the years, it's really started to sort of take off as not only just a destination, but it's a nice place to live. And what are your favorite areas of Lisbon? Where do you like to sort of? I mean, I know the downtown there is super popular, and I have a really favorite little restaurant there, which I can't remember the name of it now.
You mean Baixa?
Yeah, in Baixo, in downtown.
Oh yeah, I avoid that.
Oh, really? Really? It's
Yeah, I
what?
think when you live in Lisbon, it's like you don't want to be in Baixa necessarily because that's the tourist hotspot and that's where the traffic is. And like also don't go with a car inside. And yeah, I stay on the hills. Like I'm on Grasa, of course. There's a nice vibe. It's more alternative. I felt home there because I lived in Neukölln in Berlin, and it's a bit more I don't know, a bit rougher or a little bit more grungy. Yeah, I guess that's Grasa, but now it also has like lots of natural wine bars and nice restaurants and stuff. So it's not so grungy anymore, I think. But then, yeah, and then I'm looking now for a new apartment from June, and I think I will go more to the other side, like Ajuda. That seems to be the new place to be. I don't know. At least it's very close to the bridge, and you get to the beach faster. Caparica, yeah, Caparica, but also Cascais, I guess, because it's on that side more. Also along the train line, you can also go to those beaches. And then I play tennis in Monsanto Park, and that's also close to there. So it's a logistic decision. But I could imagine like also moving a bit further out of Lisbon at some point. I didn't come here to Portugal just for the city, but I moved from a city to get into nature. But now I'm living in Lisbon, which is a lots of traffic and
Eddie said it. Eddie said it. I compromise. Compromise. It's only like 30 minutes down.
yeah, but the weather is it's the microclimate, no?
It's a l-
Um,
yeah, not quite like sort of that sort of microclimate you get in next to the river there. It's can be a little bit more
yeah,
I guess.
and also there's too many Germans.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, we left. I mean, my Rita, my partner, she's originally from Andalusia, but she moved to Eliseta, and she really loves it. She loved having the apartment looking over the ocean and all of that kind of thing. But I have farming in my blood. I have farming in my roots, and
Mhm.
it's always been. She was very kind and said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to live in the middle of nowhere again on a farm." And apart from the chickens that she doesn't like very much, she's adjusted. She hates
No, but
chickens
I think long term this is
following around and
this is the
pooping
dream.
everywhere.
But I guess it's always greener on the other side. Like you need to compromise in some form, make a decision. You can't have the house with a view on the ocean, and the vibrant live music scene, and I don't know, at the same time, like in an affordable price.
I mean, like Eddie said, we looked at a few places to buy and everything, but it was just starting to escalate the price. And I always like to try to move somewhere which is n- on it's got potential, but it's not anywhere on the radar yet. I think that's always a good thing. I mean, here, yeah, we were able to buy hectares of land and everything for the price I sold a one bedroom apartment for in Lagos, So it's kind of crazy. But in that Lagos apartment, like I bought it at virtually nothing, and it over the years it went up quite a bit because everybody wanted to live in Lagos. Do you know the Algarve at all? Do you know Lagos?
Yeah, I was traveling a lot to Portugal before I moved, and a few times to Algarve as well, like to surf a surf house. I didn't surf
Yeah.
there though.
Which one? Which?
I
So,
forgot. I forgot. I think it was called the Surf House, and I don't know. It was run by Germans.
it might have been
It had a
in
pool.
was it in Raposa?
Yeah, I think so.
Osamu and
Yeah, maybe it had
Tina.
a tennis court and
No, the tennis.
no,
No.
and it. I came a few times, and I saw like Lagos like long time ago, and I think we went to a party there. I think there's lots of like um
Australians.
maybe now, yeah. I don't know. It was like 8 years ago or something. So
There's
very
been
long
a
time
there's a
ago,
lot of
Lagos.
Australians there over the last 15 years for sure. From Melbourne in the
Yeah.
middle of summer. You're wearing singlets and yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I was
I
I was standing on the table there. I think I was very drunk and very hungover the next day. I think that was Lagos for me.
Yeah.
So
What
I don't
happens
know.
in Lagos stays in Lagos.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I don't know. Lagos is. I think you need to be a bit younger for that. I'm not really
Yeah.
looking for this anymore. But Algarve itself, I must say I haven't been in the 3 years that I live here. I haven't been down there, and I'm planning to go actually next week because uh yeah, it's not far actually, but I just never get there.
Cyprus is very beautiful. Algiers is very beautiful. We used to have a
Well,
little
is this Algarve as well? Okay, because
yeah,
this is
it's
where
right
I've
on the
been,
border.
but I think it's more to the side, right?
Yeah, it's
It's
on the
more
we call it the West Coast. It's like the Costa
yeah.
Ina Natural Park.
Oh, that's beautiful. Like this is amazing. I went there in a tiny house once to get to how do you say
You stress?
de-stress, yeah, from the Lisbon life, and that was really nice. It's beautiful there, but yeah,
I mean,
it's
listen.
hard to choose where to like living there. I don't know. If you don't surf, that's the thing. Like you are a surf teacher as well, so for you
Uh,
it'd be close to the ocean is essential.
Well, we live 40 minutes from the ocean. I intentionally moved away from it because it's a kind of crazy thing because, it sounds like first world problems, right? But when you go and I work on the beach and I often go there before sunrise to do my first session. And if you're doing that 7 days a week, every day, you soon get kind of a little bit tired of it. You stop feeling that appreciation for the ocean and being in that connection between the land and the sea. But then when you live a little bit inland and you change your everyday perspective, I kind of really look forward to having those coaching sessions and driving to the beach for the day. It's like a little adventure. It's kind of a
Mhm.
strange, yeah, it's kind of a strange. There was something about becoming a little bit. No, I'm not going to say numb, uh, but you become a little bit used to doing something, and you forget the whole reason why you did it in the first place, and you forget the whole
Yeah.
appreciation. Um, so yeah, yeah. So I moved a little bit inland, and partly because like I have clients in the Algarve, I have clients on the west coast here in Alentejo and Port Covo area. And I
Mhm.
also have clients still in Edicetta and clients that come to Costa Caparica, and literally where we are is in the center. And it's right close to the motorway, so I can go up, down, and to the west
Mhm.
very easily. So there is that perspective. But I do, as soon as I then approach the ocean, then you suddenly realize the difference in the air, in the I don't know if you have it in Lisbon, because in Lisbon you still have that sort of oceanic feel. You still have that sort of smell in the air of the ocean, So maybe you don't get that difference. I don't know.
Mm. No, yeah, I think there's probably oceanic air, but there's also
Pollution.
lot of pollution. It's kind of balancing this out then.
Yes.
No, and every time I cross the bridge, I have a car now for a few months, and it's really upgraded my life here, I must say. In Berlin, I never needed a car, but here it I think it helps. And then you cross the bridge, and every time I cross it, it doesn't really wear off, like this effect. And just the light and the color and, I don't know, it's always impressive. And then I come to Caparica and, get my beach dose even when it's like a rainy day like yesterday I went, and it still, does something. Yeah.
It's kind of creative, that area. It has a really cool vibe. It's kind of a little bit grungy again, It's a little bit on edge. There's a little bit of graffiti, but it's very cool. I do like that
Yeah.
area. It's beautiful. But there is nothing like I can remember flying into Lisbon from being away and for work or whatever. It's nothing like getting into Lisbon and then driving south and crossing that bridge in the blue sky, and then you hit the area where I'm living now, which is just the big montadas, which is the cork oak forests
Oh,
and
yeah.
rolling. That's just
It's an
fantastic.
but you're right, you need to have a distance sometimes or get out of it to really appreciate it again, I think, with everything.
No, that's
Yeah.
that's exactly my philosophy at the moment that I'm trying to live by. A little bit of abstinence. Living here in the countryside,
Mhm.
you just get it perspective, and you have a different appreciation of when you do go to the beach.
Yeah.
Imagine like imagine having to restrict myself because I have too much time on next to the ocean. And we're lucky, aren't we? We could probably actually wrap it up
Yeah, of
here.
course.
I really appreciate your time. I think it's super cool what you're doing. I think it's a really good idea from both an informative perspective, but also from an entrepreneurial perspective. And I think you're going to be really successful at this.
Thank you.
And but to seeing it grow, and I look forward to seeing the posts. And when I'm in Lisbon, I'm for sure I'm gonna follow your advice and go wherever and follow. If I want your followers to leave lots of comments as well, I really want to see reviews of the different events that they went to.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
to a little bit of a picture of if I'm going to like it or not.
And I will send you more, like the recommendations that I had. I will send you that and the links to it. I think it makes sense, to link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, if you send me a document and you send me with the actual hyperlinks already there, I can put that on the show notes, and or if you have, I don't know if you have a web page or something of that I can direct people to, or even an email or something like that. You can send
Not yet.
I don't know how you want to do it, but maybe it's best maybe in the show notes to put that list of recommendations and maybe locations, and then also
the Instagram, I think, is the main.
Instagram.
Yeah, for
okay,
me.
that's cool. I think you can have Linktree as well, don't you? That's kind of cool. And
I do, yeah. I would link also to this podcast episode when you're when you're publishing it.
All right, such a great thing to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Let's just leave it on here for the listeners. If you need to follow anything to do with music that's happening in Lisbon, live events, bars to go to, which is playing really cool live music, follow Music of Lisbon. Is that correct?
No. Sound of Lisbon.
Sound of Lisbon. Have you got any hashtags or any like underscores or anything in that? Or is it at
sound it's underscore of underscore Lisbon. So it's sound underscore of underscore Lisbon.
Perfect. We got there in the end. Thanks so much, Anna.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Really nice to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Likewise. Take care.
Okay, now.
Ciao.
If you enjoyed this episode of Podcast Portugal, please be sure to leave us a rating or a comment or a bunch of stars. It really helps the podcast gain a little bit more visibility. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, and really it helps immensely to attract more super interesting guests. I'd also like to take this moment to thank Band of Four. They provided us very kindly with our jingle and have supported this podcast in so many ways. And I'm really happy to see your current success and playing in some really interesting venues in Switzerland. And thanks once again, guys, and loving the new track as well. So this is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. Over and out. Connecting pose and energy. Mom says focus on geography, on the things I can learn without machine.